What is yoga? How to start? What to do? Do we need to visit ashram? Or can we do some practice here before we visit ashram? Is it yoga what's happening in the ashram?
Yoga is a very popular subject in the Western world. Some people think it is purely calisthenics to keep the body fit. Few people think it is asanas and pranayams to keep body agile and fight disease and stay fit. Few people think it is much deeper subject. So yoga has become one of the very big industry, and everyone has tried to interpret according to the market's demand. If people want a fitness program, they convert yoga into a fitness program. If people want for a spiritual awakening, they convert it into a spiritual awakening and they think it is part of a spiritual program. But that's not reality actually. You have to understand what is yoga first. What does that mean? It is a Sanskrit word. Yoga is plus. Something plus something. And it is very conveniently interpreted by spiritual groups as union of soul with the God. That's not reality, because there is no separation in the very first go. It's completely embedded. Many people think it very differently and they interpret it as per they wish to interpret. But the meaning of it means union plus. And to understand it critically and thoroughly, you should go on to deeper analysis of definition of yoga step by step, and the doubts about yoga would get cleared. Yoga is union of or plus. Before addressing what unites with what, let's ask a fundamental question. If there is a union of two objects, what is the result? If I take tomato 1 and add it with tomato 2 and I make yoga, what is the outcome? Very simple. It is sauce. It gets converted into new form, new shape, and new name. We actually are the results of yoga when our parents met physically and we were implanted as fusion of male and female chromosomes. Whenever the yoga happens, there is always an emergence of third entity or third prowess. That is actually yoga. Yoga is not something that you do as a single piece and you come out of it with single piece without any transformation in your astral existence. Because first it happens at astral existence and then that is reflected onto the physical existence. And you should start examining whether has something really changed, has something transformed. If transformation is taking, you are practicing yoga. If transformation is not happening, you are just practicing calisthenics or any form of physical exercises. So, coming back to the fundamental question about yoga is union of you with yourself. What is that? You need to understand deeper. The moment we are born, we are implanted in the human body and in human shape in the mother's womb. We actually appeared from nothing to something, from metaphysical existence to the physical existence, and we continue to grow for the next 9 months inside the womb of the mother, and then we are born, and then we continue in the journey of the body that has been given to us as a result of yoga, till the point when one day we return from physical form to the metaphysical form. So it is always the union of Vyaktitva and Astitva, where the personality unifies with existence. And each day practice will take you closer to destruction of personality and merger with existence. That is yoga. Everything that you see is actually yoga. But at the primary stage, it begins, and then there are specific techniques according to your temperament. The temperament is determined by the level of journey or level of experiences that you had in previous lives, the experiences that actually sets your temperament, and you start from that point. You would read people who spent 30 to 40 years under the watchful eyes of a guru, and then you see that their kundalini awakens. And you also see a person gets enlightened in just matter of couple of years. So why it is so? It's because you start from the point where you left behind and you continue on your onward journey. Please do understand that yogic practices, as you foresee, as you perceive, are quite different than reality. The reality is that you unify with yourself. And this sounds very absurd initially. At the outset, what do you mean? Yes, it might sound absurd, but you just need to stop for a while and start introspecting. The one that is ready to shoot outside and the one that resides inside. When I'm with my opened eyes, I'm running outside, I'm seeing things. What I'm seeing, the moment I close my eyes, I am closer to my inner self. That's where it starts from. That's the journey, that's the beginning of the journey, that your energy floating outside should actually recede backward to your own nucleus. Your nucleus means the outer periphery and the center, which is the nucleus. You have to get in unison with your own nature, with your own center, with your own nucleus. You might have observed Shiva Lingam, and it always reminds of the nucleus, outer layer, and in the center. And then over the period of time, you will get to know of the detail of it. I'm not just going into detail, as it might get deviated from the question, which is a very primary question. The primary question is, what is yoga? Is it necessary to do yoga? Yoga is very simple. withdraw yourself to yourself as a primary stage. Merge yourself with yourself as secondary stage. Then you have to go to the next stage where you separate the energy flows and the pranic energy well within. That is the next step. The next step is you identify and create the fusion of various pranas and vayu, that is the air element, and the pranic energy within. You separate and correct the knowledge organ and action organ. Next stage is piercing through your seat of power that gives power, energies to your knowledge organ and action organs, and then subsequently leads you to complete withdrawal from something to nothing, from personality to existence. That is yoga. What is the process? If you are doing right yoga, right path, you will have transformation which will be visible, tested, and evidenced. If evidence is not created, trust me, you are just wasting your time. It's good to waste time. It's somehow better to do something than nothing. But that is not yoga. Yoga starts from the point of channelizing your energy and starting from Mooladhara to Swadhisthana to Manipur to Anahat to Visuddhi to Kutastha and subsequently to Sahasrara. These are the seat of powers. These are the seats that where lies n number of astral and causal existence, and through that you pierce through and travel upward. So there are multiple processes attached to yogic practices, but please understand it is not intellectual run up, it is not jugglery of words, but it is the practice and right practice bringing in the results well within you, the transformation that you yourself experience, and then subsequently you travel beyond. I will address to the second part, that is it necessary to do yoga before? Yes. If you do it, it will be handy. Why so? Why would you start yoga? There is first a perception. You develop a perception that you are desperate to seek self improvement and subsequently enlightenment. You are desperate to come out of misery and set your right goal to make your life joyful, peaceful, happy perpetually. This is your burning desire. You want to understand things beyond physical limitations and look beyond, go beyond, and understand everything connected with existence. These burning desires drive you to explore metaphysical explorations, including yoga. So, when you have these desires, that sets the perception well within you. And perception, when this is set that I have to do it, the goal is set, and you are motivated to go beyond, and you are desperate to go beyond. And this is definitely a very helpful tool for you to travel upward, to connect at the right place. If you suddenly start, you can start, and you are the best person to examine, but without the perception, without the hunger, you will never start. Why would you go to ashram unless and until you know about ashram? You see the potential of your growth, and that perception leads you there. And then in the process, you want to really learn and continue on your journey to enlightenment. And in that process, you first develop a perception, and any tool that helps you develop that perception is always a welcome move to get you right on your journey. So it is not mandatory, but some form to develop, to ignite the fire in you for wisdom, to ignite the fire in you to learn beyond physical existence. If you have that fire ignited in you, either it be through yoga or through literature or through something, it is always an additive and helpful factor in your journey. And I always recommend everyone, don't read the sermons, don't read what the scriptures say. That will not set the right perception, the right dharana. I will recommend things that work very fast is to read biographies of yogis as to how do they live. That will trigger the desire within you to go beyond the physical limitations. And if you do that, you would see your perception is developing very fast. The ignition is too quick, and you will be really burning with the fire of desire to learn and learn more and more, and subsequently practice more and more, and that is the path that will take you to. What you see in Darbar is Tantra. Tantra is the path that starts off with a simple connotation, a simple theorem, a simple doctrine that you have to see and explore the existence. Tantra actually means system of existence. And Tantra itself, if gets attached to some other word as suffix, it actually denotes the system to the word what it talks to. For example, Praja Tantra is actually democracy, which is the system of people. So Tantra is system of existence, and it starts from the process of how it happens. When you get on to how, there is no conflict in doctrines, there is no conflict in theories, and the moment you start exploring how, you get to the point, and then by doing techniques, you actually get to know how it happens, how it exists, and then subsequently your experiences answers what was that experience, why was that experience. So it always starts from how. So coming back to your fundamental question, any tool that ignites the desire and burning desire to learn more, to look beyond physical existence, to look beyond physical boundaries. If you develop that and if you have it, you are ready to be adopted, cared by a complete guru. And that's what Darbar looks forward to.